Lee, congratulations. This is the first co-host created thumbnail, I believe, in the history of the show. How are you tonight?
Thank you. I speechless. And perfect. It's Star Wars Day.
Oh yeah, right. Well, what did you think about stupid Mark Hamill going over there to the White House and hanging out with Jean-Pierre and Joe? Kind of made a fool out of himself, I thought.
I'm not going to comment on it because, again, Mark Hamill's iconic, and for me, his career ended about 1980.
Exactly.
After that point, it was
all downhill.
I may be a heretic, but I thought when they had the Ewoks, I knew it was fucking over.
I liked Return of the Jedi, though.
No, a lot of people like it. In fact, my girlfriend Jennifer, did you meet her?
No.
Ever? Okay. It was like 25 years ago. But she was much younger than me, like 8 years younger than me at the time. So it seemed like much. And the first film she ever saw, she was Filipino, and she came over when she was 12. And she's a brilliant girl, cum laude, Berkeley, and Lloyd. And but the first one she saw was the third Star Wars film, and she said she loved it. And it's my girlfriend, so I can't go.
Right.
You can't argue. You can't. She likes. Oh, the Ewoks are cute. I'm like, that's a problem. I'm gonna say that's a problem. I didn't watch Star Wars for cute.
Are you aware that George Lucas sold Star Wars, the whole entire franchise, to Disney for like $4 billion, which I know seems like a huge amount of money, but also kind of every time he made a movie, he was getting $2 billion. But the thing I want to ask you about is, did you know that he gave an interview, I think, to Variety shortly after, and he said that he was upset that he had to sell it to white slavers, and Disney got pissed and made him retract that?
No, I didn't hear that, no.
Yeah, he said that.
No.
But tonight, Lee, we're going to be talking about...
Let me say one thing to talk about Lucas.
Sure.
As a filmmaker, the fact that he can make a film like Star Wars and American Graffiti. Mm-hmm. American Graffiti is a great 1970s indie film, basically, it's that kind of story, like not a blockbuster, not an epic, but a personal film. Very different, obviously, than Star Wars. And they're both, on their own terms, great. So that's all.
The funny thing is, in a lot of ways, Star Wars really was an indie film as well. Like, the only reason it had all these great special effects is that the people who were working on it were such geniuses. I mean, they were taking like old Mitchell motion control cameras and, getting CNC machine type controls on them and just doing incredibly creative optical work. That it's only a pretty recent phenomenon in the 90s and everything that movies are all $100 million in these giant committee extravaganzas.
And I'll say my two connections to music, to movie history, in my opinion. She's seen one of them has been on the Titanic. We've seen the picture.
Oh, yeah,
before.
right.
The other one is, you'll get this, Jason. Many people won't. Jason, I've been in that parking lot where they shot the effects for Star Wars. I've been in that parking lot.
It's Paramount, right?
No, it's out by the airport.
Huh.
And they showed me when I went out there, I was picking up something. Whoever's office, I think Dykstra's. No, not Dykstra.
Dennis Muren.
Dennis Muren. I think, Muren. So they showed me, they said, this is a parking lot. This is where Star Wars was shot. This parking, it was like 2 spaces. That was like,
that's what I mean.
Ground.
These guys were so creative in how they made the movie. And I mean, so many studios told them they didn't want it. We've lost some of that, Lee, the creative spark. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when we did the 3D documentary for Inside the World of Jurassic Park 3D, I had the opportunity to meet and interview Dennis Muren. And off camera, I asked him, how could you allow George Lucas to shoot Attack of the Clones on a 2/3 inch sensor 311 digital color camera? And he said, because if I didn't, somebody else would have.
Yeah. That's where it goes with this industry, yeah.
But anyway, we
anyway,
digress. We want to talk today, Lee, about a story this was the story you were working on when I reconnected with you when I started Crowdsource the Truth. And you had been working on this story with Andrew Breitbart right before he died, right?
well, the first conversation I had with Andrew Breitbart, about 18 months before he died, the first conversation I had with him, I got on Pigford. He said to me, at the time, let's back up. Andrew had been through the Shirley Sherrod thing. Remember that incident?
No, I think a lot of people don't know about this, so we should start at the beginning.
So yeah, do a Wikipedia search for like Shirley Sherrod resignation, because again, I'll put it on bias in Wikipedia. A lot of it's not obvious unless you know the story, but you can kind of smell it.
They have here the firing of Shirley Sherrod.
Right.
So this all starts way back up here. It says July 19th, 2010, Shirley Sherrod.
It's got its own entry. It's got its own.
Isn't that weird? I mean, when they do that, Lee, that means, they want to draw your attention to this fake story, right?
Right. So what happened was Andrew ran a story. The setup part had been Ben Jealous, who was head of the NCP. Ben Jealous had been criticizing the Tea Party as racist. Ben Jealous was also saying the Tea Party, which is, I think, the precursor to the MAGA movement in a lot of ways. Make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's kind of, morphed a little bit, but it's basically the same people.
Yeah.
Conservatives
want smaller government, more freedom.
Right. More, and kind of ballsy about it, willing to say, I mean it,
Yeah.
Sense inspired by Andrew, and not wanting to take shit about it. So at the time, Andrew could not get on Fox News. When I interviewed him, he was banned from Fox because he had ran a story on his website showing a speech that Sherrod gave. And in his speech, she said, I was thinking about all the black people who'd lost farms. So the first time she was talking about as a official, she said, not a government official, I'll come back to that, but she said, meeting with a white farmer. And she said, so I got to think about it, and here's this white man, and he's kind of acting, he's trying to show me who's in charge or whatever. And I decided not to give him the full force of my help, right? So she said that.
She admits to that?
Yes, she said that. Now she goes on, and then...
And she's white or black?
She's black. And she's also, as we'll come back to who she is in a second, but because she sued Andrew. And so what happened was Andrew ran a story, but he excerpted the video. He cut one chunk, and then she went into a long, digression. I don't know, kind of rambling for about a minute and a half. Okay, nothing usable at all. And then she says, "No." So eventually, I realized, though, she said the white lawyer didn't help this white farmer. She said, I took him to one of his own kind, and he didn't help him. And so she said, well, so I realized it's not about, she talks for a minute and a half. Then she says, I realized it's not about race so much. This is about the haves and have-nots. And so she helped him, whatever. But Andrew in the story said, why did he run the video? He'd been sent the video, and the video does show, when she was talking, and it's an all-black audience, okay? And you can hear the audience at some points kind of go, and stopping a little, right? So when she was saying stuff like, well, this farmer, he's acting, trying to show me who's boss. You hear people now go, like they're picturing
They've been there, yeah.
Right. And so when she said, I didn't give him the full force, they go, okay, they got what she's doing, right? She didn't want to help this guy. She didn't help him. Now, that was what she said. Yeah. Now, in the story, Andrew said she later thought better of it. But the point was not, running the story was not about the attitude. It was not about Shirley Sherrod. was about the audience reaction, because the NAACP audience, and remember, this is an article like 10,000 words, mostly about Ben Giles and the NAACP. We're saying, look, you hypocrites. When you're in a room, basically an all-black room, and you don't think you're being filmed,
Right.
you're just only racist. And so the point, if she helped the farmer or not, which she did, by the way, but she lied about it. She lied about it. She said that this white, by the way, I talked to the farmer, white farmer, and his wife. They're very old. He lost his hearing on board a ship in the World War II. Okay. He was on a
Now,
ship.
wait, hang on a second, because I'm getting a little bit confused, and I'm sure people are too. Who is this guy, Ben Jealous? Is that who we're talking about?
Ben Jealous was the head of the NAACP. And then he recently ran for, I think, governor of Maryland.
Uh-huh.
Ben
Weird
Jealous,
name.
he was the head of the NAACP. So,
And so who's the white farmer?
the white farmer's name is Roger Spooner, and his wife was Eloise Spooner. But Sherrod's telling his story about the white farmer and everything. And she just said, I took him one of his own kind. She said, I took him to a white lawyer. But she said he was acting, trying to show her his boss. He talks loud a little because he's lost his hearing in
He's
World
an
War II.
old guy.
Right. And at the time he was a little younger, but still, he lost his hearing. And so she thought he was acting uppity,
Oh,
basically.
he died, it looks like, in 2022.
Again, he was very old. He had a good life, I think. And Shirley Sherrod did help him. But then in front of the NAACP audience, she said that she took him to a white lawyer. In fact,
Weird.
she took him to a black lawyer who did not help them.
Oh, boy.
Now, is that from me? No, it's not. It's from Eloise Spooner. Was it published in some obscure paper? The Washington Post.
Ah.
That interview is still up there right now, where she says, Sherrod took us to a black lawyer who took her money for 6 months and didn't do a damn thing. She didn't say damn. She said didn't do a thing for us. She wouldn't have sworn, but she was uppity. She was upset about it to that day. She said, a black lawyer, his name was Black. And she said, and she talked about, I think it was in Americus, Georgia. And she said, he took her money for 6 months. Then we went back to Shirley and said, he's not helping us. And she said, well, I got this other lawyer. He's a little further away. She said, okay, this white guy, his name's Easterling. And they went to him and he helped them. And Shirley Sherrod went with him 4 or 5 times, according to her. So I'm not saying Shirley Sherrod didn't help them at the time. She did. I'm saying she lied to the NAACP audience about the races. Like I say, there's 2 bad guys in the story, right? The farmer, he's an uppity, crotchety, he's a racist,
Spooner.
Right, that's what she's implying. And the white lawyer who took her money and showed her that it's not about the. And
is he racist? All this stuff says he was a friend to all. He's a war hero.
He's absolutely not racist.
Yeah.
That's the other part of this. And so when they're called out by CNN, remember this story made CNN was huge because what happened was the next day, and there's a whole story behind it, but I don't want to get up right now. But Glenn Beck took Andrew's story and hyped it up on Glenn Beck's morning show. Okay? She hyped it up. Glenn Beck hyped it up, sorry. And ended the show by going, well, we'll see if we can get you this afternoon, Mr. Rod. Like, and that kind of dramatic Beck voice. And that afternoon, the Obama administration called Shirley Sherrod, said, pull over, you're fired.
Wow.
They fired her right away. Now,
That's
later,
crazy.
and this is in the Wikipedia article, but you got to look for it. Later, Sherrod admitted she had told the Obama administration about the speech like a week before, like before Andrew published anything, before Andrew knew about it. Okay. So she told him, and that the Obama administration personally ordered Sherrod's firing. Now, let's get one of the videos I have on the stream, because it's actually apropos now. Let's go to the top one I've got there. I've got some videos up for everyone.
Sure.
Steve King. Just go down. Steve King.
Up here.
Yeah. The top one.
This guy?
Nope. The top one. Steve King. That was him right there, yeah.
Him.
Yeah. Because we talked about this Sherrod thing here a little.
Well, are we going to get dinged here on some of these public things for sharing other people's videos? Should we maybe?
It's my video. I shot this.
Oh, okay.
That's my camera. You hear me, Adrian?
We got sound?
We see farmer after farmer come forward now that tell us how much discrimination is there. And I've talked to a number of the black farmers by telephone and met a few of them here in a brief way at CPAC. So I've watched a lot of the video that's been brought forward by BigGovernment.com and other sources, and I believe that the work that's been done in the background of this has pulled a lot of the pieces together that were floating out there in the public universe and brought them together in a cohesive fashion. I think it would not have happened if the White House hadn't, and I suspect this, and I think we'll be able to prove it's true. I believe the White House directed that the Secretary of Agriculture fire Shirley Sherrod. I think they understood the vulnerability of her case becoming public and wanted to get it off the page as soon as possible, and that's caused a look into this. It gives us another opportunity to tell the public how much fraud is involved in Pigford.
Well, Ms. Sherrod agrees with you. It's in her suit against Andrew Breitbart. She says she believes the White House directed her to be fired.
I didn't know that.
She says that it's in her complaint. I've heard her say it in interviews too.
That's a sign that there is a rift between Shirley Sherrod and Secretary Vilsack, whom I think was in a position where he took the hit rather than the White House.
And you've known Tom Vilsack for a long time, right?
Long time.
And is your impression of him that he's the sort of guy who would make this real snap decision and just fire somebody without looking into it?
Not at all. This man is a highly trained trial lawyer. I served in the Iowa Senate with him where we competed on ideas. When I brought the workplace drug testing bill, he opposed it. We sat across from each other eye to eye for 3.5 hours and debated that with no chair intervention. It was just Steve King, Tom Vilsack like that. He was elected governor, and the 7th executive order that he signed, I took him to court and sued him on it. We've had these challenges as state senators together, as he is a governor and me as a state senator, he is a governor, me as a congressman, and now me as a congressman, and he is a Secretary of Agriculture. I can tell you this about Tom Vilsack. He is a careful, well-prepared man. He doesn't make impulsive decisions. He's not rushed into a decision. And when I heard him say that he received this message on Shirley Sherrod's speech on his BlackBerry, and he fired her without looking into it as deeply as he should have, I have always concluded that he was telling us in a way that would like to have had us think that he was making the judgment call, but I think that email came from the White House just as Shirley Sherrod does.
That's pretty amazing that you helped him realize that right there in the interview, Lee.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great clip for that reason. I love that part. And also, how Steve King knows the issue. He's not caught.
Exactly. You could see the wheels turning as you told him, and he's like, "That means that there's a rift between these two." He gave you information. It was great.
So let's go back for a second. Let's ask ourselves a question that I'll answer in the Patreon segment, okay? But I want to ask you a question now. Why did Shirley Sherrod warn the Obama administration about the speech? And let me tell you what's not. Obviously, it was not because Andrew Breitbart had excerpted the video. Because the accusation of Andrew is by excerpting video, they call it selective editing.
Right.
All editing is selective. All editing, by definition.
Right.
Remember, no one just
fall on the VCR and accidentally edit it.
Right. And even if you do it randomly, it's a choice.
Right.
So that's a selection. So, so it's not because of selective editing. Because the narrative in the mainstream media to this day And the narrative everyone thinks is Andrew Breitbart edited the video to lie about this poor black woman. He's a racist scumbag. Fuck him.
Wow.
That's the narrative. So you can find easily tweets with people saying that. However, let me ask a question. Let's think through this logically. Why did Sherrod warn the Obama administration about the speech a week before? Because that's on record. That's what she did, right? It was not because of selective editing, right? It was not like Andrew sent it to her and she said, okay, I've got to warn the Obama administration. It's going to leave out half the video or whatever. Makes sense? So,
Well, why did they warn? Because they just knew she was going to say all this stuff?
no. Why did she warn the Obama administration? She told them, watch out, the speech is coming. Now, my hypothesis is because she knew she had lied about the...
Oh, you mean she knew that Breitbart was going to release it? She had made the speech? No?
No, she had no idea.
Wow. So she just was
How would
going
she
to
have
make
any
this
idea?
crazy speech. I don't know. Why would she warn them, hey, I'm going to make a crazy speech?
What I'm
Why
saying
not
is
just...
this part of the narrative is clearly not true, logically. The narrative is that Andrew Breitbart edited a video and that destroyed Sherrod's career, cause and effect, right? But if that was the case, there must be something else there, because that had nothing to do with what she warned them a week before the story came out.
Well, but also this guy just revealed when you told him that they fired her right away, that he didn't even look into it, he said. Somebody told him to fire her.
Right. But why? What were they hiding? The thing they were hiding is the Pigford fraud. Because the way Andrew found out about this story was a couple of days after this controversy, Andrew was watching like MSNBC, and they were talking about him. So I saw his picture, and it was kind of like if who he hosts a show around the same time as Maddow. I forget his name.
Mehdi Hassan?
He's what?
Mehdi Hassan?
No, very white guy. Like,
I don't know.
And he's with a haircut. So, but he was on his show. He said, now, what was Andrew Breitbart doing nosing around Pigford or something? And Andrew had never heard of Pigford. So he said, this is going to expose Pigford on MSNBC, which I know from firsthand experience, from we're going to move on, is connected with the White House, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So, someone, I want to say Chris Wallace, not Chris Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
A name like that. It's not Chris Wallace, it's a younger guy.
Matt
But anyway,
Lauer.
no, not him. But anyway, he was saying, why would Andrew Breitbart go after Pigford? Andrew was like, what? What is Pigford? So Andrew looked it up. And Pigford, the farmer's fraud, is what we'll talk about and get into more detail in the second part of the show. But the Pigford farmer's fraud, Andrew had never heard of. And then he started looking into it. And Andrew was like, I think I've uncovered billions of dollars in fraud that no one is talking about. And so when I called him to interview him the first night, I'd never talked to him before, but he kind of looked into me. He read some of my stuff on HuffPost and so on. He said, you seem like an honest guy. So Andrew said to me, there's a story called Pigford. Ever heard of it? I said, no. He said, do me a favor. I've enjoyed this conversation. Look into that story. I'm not going to say anything else. This is Andrew talking. He goes, look into the story. See if you think it's a real story. Because I think it's a real story. And if it's a story I think it is, I don't want it to die in the conservative media gutter. I know what he meant by that. Like, if the story came out just in Breitbart, a lot of media would go, it must be garbage. It came from Breitbart. Makes sense?
Yep.
And so I said, I don't want that to happen. So no pressure. But if you think it's a real story, talk to me. Okay. So I looked
So he sort
it.
of set you on your first big Breitbart assignment, and this was like, you got the rest is history, huh?
Well, and because I did look into it, I spent about a week looking into it, and I went, this is a big story, yeah. I said, I voted for Obama, don't forget. And I was like, but this is a big story. It's a huge story. And in time, it's become even bigger. The repercussions of it And the fact that there's, no, let's go to one of this. Yeah, right. Read a little bit of this, Jason.
7 defendants sentenced to federal prison in $11.5 million fraud case.
Okay, no, wait. What's the date?
This was June 23rd, 2023.
So less than a year ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Little Rock.
Almost
7
a year.
Yeah.
Less than a year ago. Now, by the way, look, I've been dealing with the Pigford story for a long time. So let me tell you before we get into this story, the way the people who defend Pigford often get into it, the smart liberal response, one is to say, look, it's a class action lawsuit. Any class action lawsuits, there's going to be a certain amount of fraud. You kind of know that going in. Wow. So, you know, all class action lawsuits have a certain amount of fraud. However, in this lawsuit, I'm alleging 80% of it is fraud, at least.
Wow.
Possibly more. And I'll talk about the problem with this whole thing in a second. But what they always say is, well, there's always a certain amount of fraud. So they'll say, well, look at this thing. There's like 80,000 claimants, and how many convictions?
7? Yeah,
so,
seems low.
So is that bad? But now once you're reading the story, and as you're reading, listen for number 192.
It says, Little Rock, 7 defendants were sentenced to federal prison for their involvement in a scheme to defraud the U.S. Department of Agriculture out of more than $11.5 million that was intended to benefit farmers who had been discriminated against. Chief United States District Judge D.P. Marshall Jr. sentenced the defendants earlier today. Now, Lee, I'm just looking at the clock. I wonder if we maybe shouldn't do the reading of this.
No, let's go through this because I want to make find.
Four of the defendants, all of whom are sisters, were each sentenced to serve 24 months in federal prison. Linda Charles, 73, of Hot Springs. Rosie Bryant, 75. These are old ladies, of Colleyville, Texas. Delois Bryant, 76, of North Little Rock, and Brenda Sherpel, 73, of Allport, each pleaded guilty on July 6, 2022, to conspiracy to commit mail fraud and to defraud the Internal Revenue Service. Nikki Charles, 50, of Puerto Rico, was sentenced to serve 16 months in federal prison for her involvement in the fraud scheme. Charles admitted during her guilty plea that she and others solicited people to file false claims asserting they were discriminated against when they tried to get assistance from the USDA for their farming operations. Charles said she verified statements from corroborating witnesses who submitted affidavits to support the claims, but none of those witnesses actually appeared before Charles. Those actions resulted in a $4.5 million loss. Everett Martindale, 76, of Little Rock, was sentenced to a year and a day in federal prison. Martindale worked as an attorney and acted as the legal representative for most of the claimants that the 5 women recruited.
You're pointing out the main lawyer behind this, $11 million in fraud. He did 1 year. 1 year, Jason. That's working we can get it.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, you don't have to, he's saving money that year he's in jail.
Right. And he's like time served, whatever. He's going to be out in months. He's probably out now.
Oh, yeah, no. So here you go. It says both BFDL and HWFR resulted in a claims process where farmers who could show they had applied for participation in the USDA benefit program and believed they had been discriminated against could make a claim for financial relief. A successful claim resulted in an award of $62,500. Of that, $50,000 would be made payable to the claimant, and $12,500 would be transferred directly to the Internal Revenue Service as a tax withholding. Altogether, the sisters were involved with 192 claims.
Now, so let's go. So in other words, they were getting people in this scheme to say because you need a person to file, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say there was a Jewish farmer program, okay? I said, Jason, I'm not Jewish, but if you...
I could file for you, right.
Well, I'll show you what you say. We'll split the money. What do you say? Don't you make
I
it
don't.
money.
Yeah.
So, 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 uh, couldn't help it. But so if I said, okay, I need you to file though, I'll tell you what
Right.
to do. Just split the money or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
This is what they did. Now, none of the 190 people were charged.
Yeah. Why?
I'll tell you why. This is conjecture, but there's a better answer, and the real answer is someone needs to ask these people. This is a news story. This is less than a year old. Someone
Yeah.
needs to, why didn't you charge the 192 people who you say you know committed fraud? And I think here's the answer. You know, there's 40,000 files and like 7 people are convicted. What's the big deal? Okay, there's 40,000 files and there's only 200. And, 200 is some percentage of, even just hearing that. 7 sounds like whatever. 200 sounds like, really? Okay. Like, you're not convinced by anything, fine. But your ears perk up a little. Makes sense? That's what I think. And one reason I think this is when I went to Wikipedia page about this, it's
Yeah.
mentioned in the fraud story. It's mentioned in a story on Pigford. When I went to the Wikipedia page, it said 4 people had been convicted. It did not include it because 4 of them were convicted as sisters, and one time, then like 2 weeks later, the lawyer pled out, and one in Puerto Rico pled, and an accountant in Texas, and so it was 4, then 3. But you read it, a total of 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you was not upside down, 7. So in other words, they went with the lower number, even though they're lying is lying. This is a major cover-up right now. In fact, the reporting that Andrew and I did was later confirmed in a front page above the fold. That means, top of the newspaper. You see it on all newsstands, right in the boxes, if it's
Yeah.
above a top story on Pigford fraud that verified everything. And I know that it verified our work because the reporter, Shirley Sherrod, called me about a year or 2 before the story came out. She said, I'm working on this story. I read your stuff. You seem to be the guy to talk to. And I gave her everything. Because I at the time, I was like, if New York Times, I was 100%, I knew the story inside and out. I know for a fact there's fraud in about 8 ways, which I'll talk about after the break. But Shirley Sherrod, I gave her all my contacts, all my notes, everything.
I bet they
And,
did this hit piece.
What's that?
This was a hit piece.
That wasn't her,
Oh.
And so, but it was a hit piece. And again, it's a shocking amount of bullshit from the New York Times, who knew my reporting was right on Pigford. If you look at the New York Times story, in fact, it's in the Wikipedia article, but that New York Times story is still up there on Pigford. Look for that one, Jason.
Which one?
The one on Pigford. The New York Times piece on Pigford.
Isn't this it?
No, this is not. This is on Twin Falls.
Oh, sorry.
Let's say a
Pigford.
piece.
So what year was that Pigford one?
2014, maybe. Yeah, 2014. Could be 2013. After Andrew died.
Black farmers are divided over settlement. No. Bias payments come too late. Judge signs off. I don't know. These are all like 2010.
Well, go to Wikipedia. Okay, that's interesting. So go to Wikipedia for Pigford.
Pigford versus Glickman.
Yep, Pigford versus Glenn. Okay, now go down towards the bottom, and there's a section called like criticism or something like that.
Terms of the Descent Creek case history, payouts, Pigford shortfalls, subsequent events, allegations of fraud.
Okay, now in that section, They don't mention me or Andrew, but whatever. So they mentioned the New York Times article. Look for the link.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. April 25th article in the New York Times, American. Doesn't, is this it? U.S. Open Spigot. There it is. U.S. Open Spigot after farmers claim discrimination. In the winter of 2010. Well,
Sure. This story is major. New York Times completely confirmed what we've been saying for like 3 years, and Andrew died. Because don't forget, Sherrod sued Andrew. And after Andrew died, he kept suing his widow.
Wow.
Now, think about that. By the way, guess who the biggest beneficiary from Pigford? Guess the name of the woman, Jason.
Sherrod.
And how much did she get? $13 million.
Wow.
Shirley Sherrod got $13 million from Pigford.
So did she get convicted?
No, she didn't. Of course, she's a saint.
Wow.
You won't find any criticism of her. In fact,
wow.
The article, the Wikipedia article on the Sherrod story, I fixed it in Wikipedia. I said, I quoted the Washington Post piece where Ellie Spooner said, she sent us to a black lawyer first who did not help us. And so I quoted that. Okay. I included a quote about as long as the quote was there on the other side. So it's parallel. They deleted the quote. It was from the Washington Post. It was literally a quote. So there's somebody watching a page, and as soon as, they're still covering up. So that's my point. Makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's astonishing.
And also, and again, but I've got so much material, and we'll go over that. I've got amazing video. But to finish the Andrew, where we let, just one more minute. So Andrew and I was working for Andrew about 2 weeks after I met him. At the time, I did not think of myself as a journalist exactly. I thought of myself as a filmmaker.
Right.
I'd made a feature, which is another story, and I was producing stuff, and I thought of myself as a filmmaker. So I was like, okay, this Pigford thing would be an interesting film.
Documentary, yeah.
Right. So that's why, I have the footage of King. And by the way, all the footage is in the hands of Breitbart News.
And they've done nothing with it, right?
They did nothing with it. And they did nothing about this story being in the newspaper a year ago. And it's shameful. It is absolutely shameful. I get a little emotional about this. That the fact they're letting Andrew's legacy suffer, letting him suffer. Stop being pussies. Start dealing with this. And also, I'm going to tell you something. I've heard from people that the reason Shirley Sherrod, she eventually settled out of court on undisclosed terms. Okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a settled out of court for undisclosed terms. I've heard a rumor that the reason she dropped it, because of the story that I reported about her lying to the NAACP audience, lying about the white lawyer. I think she decided basically the story's better if I make them go to a white lawyer first, and he doesn't help them. And I'm serious. Because she went 4 or 5 times, she did not forget it. She knew what happened. Okay, and that's according to the Spooners. So you can't have it both ways. Why she contacted Obama administration a week before the speech, a week before the Breitbart story? I think to hide that, because then it would lead to a lot of questions about Pigford, and they don't want the poster child for Pigford, which Sherrod is in some ways. Well, why did she get the most? Why did she get 13 million? And by the way,
why? Yeah.
I can't get inside their head. Someone needs to ask those questions of them under oath in front of Congress, because this is billions of dollars of fraud right now. And the FBI could easily, if they gave me a call, I could easily lead them to. I interviewed a USDA employee who told me that the way they told people in the audience, in the office at USDA, is approve 2/3 of these and disprove 1/3. I said, well, how do we approve 2/3, disprove 1/3? And the reason why is if they approved like 90%, that was
Yeah, it's too much. Right.
right. So they said approve 2/3, disapprove 1/3. I mean, do not approve.
Reject. Yeah.
And right, that's the word. And so
Yeah. People are saying good luck with the FBI. I agree. They're not going to solve this.
so let's think that through. See, here's the thing. What everyone does, a problem. You know what? I solve problems. So you can bring up problems and forget about them. Say, oh, good luck. The way you get results is by going, okay, let's see, the FBI is not going to go, awesome, thanks. Here's what to do. I thought this through. In the South, there are probably not high officials, not congressmen, maybe Massey, but there might be prosecutors in the South who would be willing to file suit about this and find more fraudsters in their areas. And I think you have law enforcement who tend to be Republican, and this is a chance to make the Obama administration, Biden administration, the DOJ, Ag, and Vilsack, but I think he's still Ag Secretary, by the way. I know he was again. Biden brought Vilsack in again. So I believe that if you get some, look, I know for a fact that.
Yeah. Tom Vilsack.
Right. He's Ag Secretary now, right?
Tom Balsack, the Agriculture Secretary. Yeah.
This is a huge opportunity. Because again, these convictions were last year. But and we'll talk about the other problem with this after the thing. And it has to be thought through. It's just a problem. You have to think it through. So the FBI, if law enforcement locally at a county, a red county in the South, investigate, right? What do they need the FBI for? See, I don't think anything. I think they can prosecute. You violated this law here, fraud, right? It was committed in our county. They don't need to go. And if the FBI is suddenly saying like 1,000 people, like just put a round number, like large number of people, the FBI is going to have to start to deal with it. And then you put them on the defensive. You see, you don't just submit something and go, well, I'm sure they'll be great. The FBI, they're dreamy. You have to think through the problems and try to solve them. And so I think there's a lot of prosecutors. Again, you're not going to get a Soros prosecutor to bring a suit ever. But there are places where there aren't Soros prosecutors. But like this, rural areas, right? And who would have committed fraud? In a lot of cases, rural people. So again, I think that's the way to do it. I think if you can get 10 sheriffs that each bust 100 people in their county, which we'll talk about that story. I'll tell you, looking at the numbers, because I got a list of who filed. I've seen the numbers. And then, Jason, these aren't hard to get to 100. For instance, some of the addresses in Memphis, like these little crappy homes in Memphis, in black neighborhoods, okay? At that one address, I had the list. I said, wait, that's the address? So in the address, 20 people filed in one house. 20.
That sounds completely normal.
Right. In fact, I look at the house, it's like a 2-bedroom, like a small box, basically. There's no way 20 people are in there, so it's absurd. And again, in a lot of these smaller counties, if they start busting and they use one to kind of stepladder, bounce off each other. A coordinated effort would not be hugely expensive. It's not tricky. You just find out who, because I have the list. Actually, I have the list, Jason, but I can't figure out how to open the file format. So
what is the file format?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
Because it might give away. It was sent to me anonymously a few years ago. And so like if 10 people had 100 fraudsters in their county, there's 1,000. Like That's the way to get to 1,000. If you're backing in numbers, it's actually not that hard. And once it starts being, once you get the first 10, I think some people who are reticent to kind of go first will look at that, and suddenly you get 100 counties, right? And they have 100. Then you're getting the numbers the FBI and Congress have to look at. And by the way, this deals with so many issues now, like immigration, because, for instance, the way they set up the fraud, basically, they built a system where fraud was impossible to detect. In other words, they built the system to make it impossible to detect fraud, kind of like if you don't require ID when you vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, also, they're the ones in charge of the detection, so they don't bother looking.
Right. And then if someone else is looking, this guy came in, he told me, I'm voting, I got this fake ID. Now, how do I use this? How's this fake ID? But they don't say that. They just go, you want to vote? Yes. Okay, bye-bye.
The thing that you told me that really caught my attention is this lawsuit against Breitbart, because you see there's so many things about this that just scream of their standard operating procedure of these types of lawfare operations. And what I'm noticing, Lee, just during our chat right here, we've got a large number of live viewers. I want to thank everybody for watching and encourage people to sponsor the show by going to patreon.com/Stranahan or odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and Subscribestar and Patreon. But there's people who are trolling the chat about what's her name? Amazing Polly. You know her? She was apparently on this story as well. But I don't think she would have been supporting your work. Do you know her? Polly Saint?
I've talked about it a few times. I never had an issue. I think, remember, Polly had written since I run, but
Okay. Anyway, well, we're going to finish the conversation.
Again, other people may have covered this especially. However, there's no one else who went around the country interviewing farmers,
Right.
interviewing lawyers, interviewing Mike Espy, the head of agriculture under Clinton, who admitted to me off camera. He said, stop the camera. Let's play one more video. It's real quick.
We got to get over to the sponsor segment because it's going to be so late by the time
This video's worth. Scroll down a little bit. It's quick. This is me interviewing Rijal Muhammad. He's the agriculture director for Nation of Islam. Keep going down. Keep going. That's Rijal right there. This is Rijal Muhammad. He's not thrilled with the interview. Listen.
Do you think there was fraud in the claims, though, and like the attempted deform?
Listen, man, I'll knock your goddamn camera down. You keep asking about the black farmers fraud. I'm gonna kick that shit down. You got that?
That was fun.
That's nice. Seems like a nice guy.
He
doesn't even want you to ask about the fraud.
And again, does it seem like a hostile question?
No. I mean, he seems like he's involved. He's got Jesus Christ poster behind him and he's cursing at you like that? What's with this guy?
Well, he was trying to threaten me,
Oh, he seems like a nice guy.
And again, I've dealt with people who I've gotten along with very well from the Nation of Islam. Mr. Tony out of LA, for instance. I talked to a number of people, but originally they don't want to talk about the fraud. And we'll play a quote from A. Slaughter, a farmer in Georgia, was told that by Congress people. Look, we're fine with the fraud. And this is also the setup for a lot of the lies about Black Lives Matter as well.
Yeah, see, that's what I think. There's something much bigger here that maybe hasn't been brought to the surface yet, even now.
It was look, you can see with those women who pled guilty. They had convinced other people to commit fraud. Now, we'll play for you after the break. Interview, we had an undercover guy go to one, and I've been to these meetings that this guy, Tom Burrell, gave around the country at like churches. And you'll see, he's saying the Pigford settlement is a gift from God by your ancestors. You'll hear it. He's talking very preachery. So
This is almost like a secret plan for reparations, and they're just getting it
that-
to whoever
that's
they
a-
want.
it's being pitched to him exactly as reparations. This is your reparations. Come on, take 50 grand. Don't take it. Just take it. In fact,
Yeah.
what I'm amazed by is not how many people bid it, who did it, but it's how many people who didn't do it. Again, you know, if you dangle $50,000 in
A lot
front
of
of most,
people are going to take it,
right?
not ask
And
too
so-
many questions.
Right. And again, the practical problem we're going to have is, do I want to see 80,000 old, poor black people
Right.
busted,
No.
tried? And the answer is, how would they make restitution anyway? I mean, the $50,000, people told me their cars, do the roof, whatever, that money's gone.
Exactly.
Right.
It's throwing good money after bad to try to do anything about that lost 50,000.
But I do think something needs to happen. And I think they need to go after the ringleaders.
Well,
And the
that's just it. Sherrod and the other
ringleader,
people.
let me tell you, ringleader number one, Barack Obama.
Yeah,
Ringleader number two, Eric Holder.
I believe it.
Mac Daddy ringleader. I put him above those two. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is absolutely the person behind this. Because don't forget, it's called the Glickman because it started in the Clinton administration.
Arkansas.
Right.
Oh.
And all these cases happen right around Arkansas and Memphis. And we'll talk about that more. But dynamite stuff, you'll see. And still very important.
This is amazing. And Lee, you are really the authority on this story. So people should stay with us. We're going to be right back. Join us on patreon.com/Stranahan, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/